and thank you for joining us on Classic Vinyl Podcast in our Meet the Beatles series. This is a podcast where we listen to and review songs and albums from the classic vinyl era of the 60s and 70s. I am one of your hosts, Justin, and I'm joined by my co-host who doesn't have a point of view, knows not where he's going to, but he's here once again in the basement studio, Tyler.
Mr. Nowhere Man.
You are a nowhere man.
Yeah. Well, I'm here.
You're here, definitely. And this week, of course, on our Meet the Beatles series, we've made our way up to Rubber Soul, which, you know, a lot of Beatles fans consider one of their best albums. But the funny thing about Beatledom is you could probably find, not probably, you can find a Beatles album that's the best.
Can I come up with a label for this?
Yeah.
This album is the Beatlemix album.
The Beatlemix.
Yeah, it's by far the most beatnik inspired album.
Well, this album, and we'll get into a little history about it, but it definitely was a turning point for the band. And if you're following our Meet the Beatles series, we don't get too in depth on the songs. We're just kind of introducing them to you. But the thing about it is this is when you noticed a big change from the band.
Mm-hmm.
But let's get into a little history about Rubber Soul. So Rubber Soul, it's the sixth studio album, UK album, of course, released by the Beatles on December 3rd of 1965. Obviously, if you know Rubber Soul in the United States and you grew up while it was happening, the US version had a different lineup of songs, and so people see it differently. I grew up on the original UK releases off the 1987 re-releases, so I know all their UK releases like they were meant to be, but I understand the people that like the US releases because that's the way they heard them. So this album was recorded at EMI Studios between October 12th and November 11th of 1965, so a month to record an album, which is absolutely crazy.
Especially this album. This is intense.
So it's produced by George Martin. It was recorded in that 4-week time. It was kind of in between some touring commitments they had. We're going to be off the road for a month, so let's get in there and jam an album out. So, and this is also by a lot of historians considered the first Beatles album, kind of them making an artistic statement rather than just a collection of songs like their other albums had been. A lot of people think this is really when they came into their songwriting, and a lot of that is influenced by Marijuana and obviously cultural impact and things like that from bands like the Byrds, Bob Dylan, and just what was going on with folk rock influence on this thing without a doubt. So, and this really, like I said earlier, marked a big shift towards that folk rock form, and the lyrics ended up being more introspective, and that really comes from a lot of the, like I said, Bob Dylan, the Byrds, and the Beatles, as innovative as they are, they brought a lot of things in, Motown, whatever you want to call it, and they just put it all in there. So this thing was recorded on 4-track. You know, obviously they had a ton of reduction mixes to create a ton of overdubs and things like that, because this is kind of the big time when they're starting to get into these studio tricks and things. You'll see a lot of that continue heavily in their next album, Revolver, too. So this album introduced kind of a special instrument to rock music, which is the sitar, which we hear on Norwegian Wood, which is really different, but George Harrison was getting into that. You've got the harmonium on here. You've got the fuzz bass, which is on a song in here, which is really cool. There's just a lot of different things they're putting on this. And the album cover is kind of interesting. It's kind of got that tweaked look, and it was cover photographed by Robert Freeman. Basically used the distorted effect when the image slipped out of alignment, and they liked it. They liked the way it looked. You can see it on the wall up there too, can't you?
I can.
Yeah, I've got a picture of it up here on the wall. So the UK version, we were talking about how the UK and the US versions were different. The UK version included 14 songs and included no previously released singles, which is what they were doing in the UK at the time. Why you see on our Meet the Beatles episodes that we do some on songs, because those are standalone singles. But the U.S. version of Rubber Soul was released by Capitol Records on December 6th of 1965, and it did have a different track list. You can go look that up. But this album did reach number 1 in both the UK and US charts, and it sold over 12 million copies worldwide, which is pretty strong for an album, I would say. And not to mention all the singles they sold in between that as well. But this album being a big turning point for the band, I mean, being experimental, this is what leads to going forward to Revolver and Sgt. Pepper's. And that's really when you see this band turn into a studio band and start doing some of the things they're well known for. So So do you want to get to side one?
Yeah.
Side 1.
So side one opens up with a song that I'm sure you knew beforehand.
Yeah.
Drive My Car. It's a pretty popular song. This is written mainly by Paul McCartney. You know, it had a lot of contributions from John Lennon. Like at the time, they were still writing a lot of this stuff together. Recorded October 13th of 1965. It took 4 takes to record this thing. This was originally written as a really slow blues song, but they really decided to speed it up. It needed some speed to it, and they sped it up, and I haven't heard a slow version of it.
That would be terrible. This song needs to be played fast.
Well, that's probably because that's how you know it as. It would be interesting to hear it, but I think they made...
I think it would be creepy if you slowed it down. Baby, you can drive my car.
Maybe we'll have to change the speed on it and see what it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the famous bass riff was developed during the session by McCartney and Harrison, apparently. That's according to the Beatles Bible. But on this one, you've got McCartney playing his Rickenbacker 4001 S bass, and he also plays lead guitar on this. He plays his Epiphone Casino. You've got Lennon playing his Casino, his rhythm guitar, and you've got George Harrison playing rhythm on a Fender Strat. And then you've got, of course, Ringo Starr on drums. And I think this song, Drive My Car, is a sexual euphemism, really.
Seems like it.
Yeah, I really think it is. And I know a lot of historians, and this comes from the Beatles Bible as well, really disagree about whether it was McCartney or Harrison that created the central riff. Of course, McCartney says he did, but it's hard to remember things, so it's hard to say. But without a doubt, the bass riff in this thing, which I think is amazing, is classic McCartney. But what did you think after listening to Drive My Car?
I think that the bass stole the show. This is a heavy bass song, and it's really awesome. The bass is right out there as a front runner. The piano is a sweet little addition to it. You don't get the piano all that often.
So that's what's kind of interesting is you've got McCartney playing bass on this. You've got him playing lead guitar, and you've got him playing the piano. He overdubbed that later. So is this kind of the first we're seeing Paul McCartney trying to take serious lead, as he's well known to do in the later years of the Beatles?
This is really kind of crazy to me in this album, how often you see different members of the band playing the same instruments. Like this one, they're playing the Epiphone Casino. Lennon and McCartney are. I mean, they're both playing the same guitar. Harrison has his Fender Stratocaster, but it's unique that they're doing something like that.
Well, the Epiphone Casino, I've got a couple casinos, and the Beatles are what led me to get that. But I think this album and Revolver, that's well known for the sound you get. But some of that sound was created by Strats, too, which is kind of funny. But this album is well known for the casinos. What did you think of the song?
I think it's a pretty little song. He says that, I figure he must love her if he's willing to allow her, him being the star, to drive his car. Because it's probably a nice car, and he's willing to let her drive it. Beep, 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 yeah.
Yeah, beep, 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 yeah.
Not a euphemism at all.
No, it doesn't sound like one, does it?
This song is total. One of the 3 songs that I've heard from this album. There's not very many songs that I was familiar with on this album. This is one of them, and it's very much a euphemism, and I had kind of a good time with it, but I didn't take it too seriously. What are your thoughts about Drive My Car, Justin?
Well, obviously, this is a song I've loved forever. It's fast and upbeat, so I think we're right saying that it should have been sped up. The intro's great. I think the number one thing, like you said and I said, is the bass on this song. It's classic McCartney bass, and I've said it a million times, if McCartney can be underrated as a bass player, he is, yet he's still Paul frickin' McCartney. So
I want to side with McCartney that he wrote that riff, because he's the bassist. I mean, I'm sure that Harrison can play bass, but
yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, some things, this band is probably the most well-documented band of any band ever, and still a lot of things are disputed. So
sure,
it's tough to say, but McCartney playing lead guitar, playing bass, overdubbing the piano on this thing, it's got a good guitar solo in it. I think this is kind of the start of McCartney trying to, he's a very controlling guy in the studio, and that's been documented by many people, and he knows what he wants. And you can disagree with it or whatever, but you look at the success he's had, and it's hard to deny it.
Exactly. 12 million albums.
So that moves us on to the next song, Norwegian Wood, This Bird Has Flown. Now, this was mainly a Lennon composition. It's obviously sang by Lennon. It was recorded October 12th and October 21st of 1965. Now, this is the first Beatles song and, let's be honest, the first popular rock song to feature sitar. It's what opens up this song. George Harrison was getting big into the Indian music and picked up a sitar, and I think it fits in perfect. And of course, we only know it how it is.
It's surprising because this is a song titled Norwegian Wood, and India, the home of the sitar, is very much on the other side of the globe.
Yeah, I mean, but that's why things work, because they don't have to make sense, right?
Yeah, and once again, Norwegian Wood just seems like a euphemism.
Yeah, and this song's basically the way I take it about a passing, ambiguous type of affair. I mean, Lennon is later on had stated that this was about an extramarital affair, but he disguised the lyrics. In a way, they're not disguised very well, but it is what it is.
This is like disguising an elephant behind a palm tree. This
Yeah.
is, yeah.
Yeah, so you got Lennon on his Gibson J160E acoustic guitar. I believe McCartney is playing his Hofner bass on this. That one's kind of disputed whether it's his Hofner or his Rickenbacker. Obviously, George Harrison is on his J160 acoustic guitar and plays the sitar on this, and you've got Ringo playing tambourine. So there is a debate in this song, and it's well known among Beatles fans about whether the final lyric implies John Lennon or whoever the narrator of the song is, being John Lennon, burned the girl's apartment down. And it's kind of interesting because there's a lot of dispute with that, but that's a whole nother episode. We would get into that. But I'm assuming you said you had heard a few songs on this album. Is this one you know?
This is one. I forgot that this was a Beatles song. I'm a little ashamed because I'm more familiar with the music side of it than I am the lyrics on this.
Well, and that's what we're doing this about. I mean, we're introducing you and other people to the Beatles, but there's a lot of people that know Beatles songs but don't know their Beatles, and you're no different. And
absolutely.
That's what we're getting into. So what did you think about Norwegian Wood?
This song, it's really a good example of that folk rock. This is such a folksy sounding song. It almost sounds like it's a gypsy song. It's got that real strong kind of folksy tune to it or tone to it. It just sounds like it's a real folksy kind of folk rock song. And that
with an Indian sitar.
With a sitar. And that's so crazy that the sitar fits this song so perfectly, and it really does. Yet, this is where on this album we start to see the Beatles dabble in playing with sound, twisting sounds around, combining different sounds and noises, and it's totally working. And I see why they continued to venture out there.
Well, it's amazing they did this on 4-track, and now we'll have 12 tracks just for one guitar.
Yeah, for sure.
Pretty crazy.
But this song, it's a song that I wouldn't have picked out and said, oh yeah, that totally is a Beatles song. But then I listened to it and listened to the lyrics. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is the Beatles. And it's a really strong addition to this album, I feel. What are your thoughts about Norwegian Wood?
I'm obviously a Beatles apologist, and this album means a lot to me. It really does because of my history with it. But I love the song Norwegian Wood. It's got amazing bass. I think Lennon's vocal in it is really, really strong. You can tell the song is very, very heavily influenced by the Byrds. And a lot of that's from the sitar too, because it is kind of controversy whether the Byrds used the sitar first or not. I mean, the Beatles definitely popularized it. There's no doubt about that. I think the harmonies, like the Beatles had strong harmonies on their early stuff, but now they're getting into what I call beautiful harmonies. And I think a lot of that studio work and stuff, but yeah, I really like the harmonies, especially when McCartney comes in. The part that starts, she asked me to stay and she told me to sit anywhere, and McCartney singing with Lennon. I think it's very, very strong. So very, very strong song. So that moves us on the next song, You Won't See Me. Now, this is a Motown influenced song, McCartney has said, and you can hear a little bit of that as well. But this is a song written by McCartney mainly, sang by McCartney. It was recorded on November 11th of 1965. This was actually during the very last session recording for this album. It's one of the longest recorded Beatles songs to this point, which is under 4 minutes still, which is kind of strange. But Yeah, but you do have those strong rhythm arrangements from Motown on this. You've got McCartney on his Rickenbacker bass. He plays piano on this. John Lennon's on his Gibson J160 acoustic guitar. I believe Harrison is on his Fender electric guitar. And of course, Ringo is on drums on this. I did say McCartney played piano on this, but there are some historians that say it could have been George Martin, which he was well known for playing it as well. So it's kind of hard to say, but most people lean stronger towards McCartney playing it, but it doesn't really matter. It sounds good. So I'm assuming this is a song you weren't aware of before.
No, this is the first time for me.
So what do you think of You Won't See Me?
I was really shocked to hear such Motown influence in a Beatles song. I knew that the Beatles had derived a lot of influence from the blues, and they were really taken with the blues. I didn't realize that they were so into Motown.
They were really into everything. I mean, whether it be Motown, whether it be female music groups, whether it be any kind of folk rock, it just seems like they brought everything together.
I'm starting to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a beautiful, beautiful song. Even though it was my first time hearing it, this is a song from a young guy who's in love, and he is going to lose his mind if she won't see him.
Yeah, and this is about McCartney's faltering relationship with Jane Asher at the time.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of these songs that McCartney writes about relationships were about Jane Asher. Now, McCartney was kind of known as the town bull. We'll just put it that way. So I'm sure that's little bit of a strain on a relationship. So you can look at that both ways, and you've got a young kid coming into a shitload of money and popularity, fame, whatever you want to call it. So there's a lot of problems going on here. So you can call that one way or the other, but
it is what it is, as the saying goes.
Exactly.
So, Justin, what are your thoughts on You Won't See Me?
Well, I can see you fine. But this song, once again, I think is one thing that is really strong on this album is the harmonies. The ooh, la, la, la part that they go through, it sounds kind of goofy, being kind of a Motown type of feel and chord structure and stuff, but it works perfect. I think one thing that's very strong in this song is the drumming. I think it's probably the strongest drummed song on the album. The bass is very strong in it, and it's just a good all-around song. I like that, we're going from love songs to troubled love songs and troubled life and real life now. I think that's kind of where a lot of these, they're growing up. That's what's happening, So, yeah, good song. So that brings us to the next song, Nowhere Man. Now, this is mainly a Lennon composition, helped by a little bit by McCartney, but it's sang by Lennon. This one was recorded on October 21st and 22nd of 1965. Now, funny thing about this is it's one of the first Beatles songs not really about romance. This is kind of an ambiguous song about a man who feels kind of unneeded.
Almost invisible.
Yeah, he lacks direction. He has no worldwide view. I mean, he just feels within himself and nobody cares kind of type of thing.
Yeah. The feeling I get listening to this song is that this could be a song about a man who's not been lucky in love and feeling that kind of invisibility or that brushed aside.
Yeah, that could be it. But I think, it's well known that Lennon has said he was going through some serious writer's block at the time. And, when your whole career and your whole being is being a songwriter, maybe that's why he felt unknown, is because he was going through this writer's block and couldn't think of anything. So this song is maybe about how he felt about not being able to produce what he was supposed to.
I say that this song feels like it could be a song about a man who's lost in love and hasn't been lucky, but when you listen to the lyrics, it's very explicitly not about love or lost love or anything. It's just the music itself, the instruments sound like it could be that kind of a song. And so I find that really intriguing for the song that's not about love.
Well, so speaking of instruments, you've got Lennon playing rhythm guitar. He's playing his Fender Strat on this. You've got McCartney playing the Hofner bass. And then you've got George Harrison on the Fender Strat and Ringo Starr on drums. Of course, the album well known for using casinos is all Fender Strats on this song. And the solo, there is a little bit of debate from the historians whether who plays the solo on this, John Lennon or George Harrison. And to me, it's a really simple solo. He uses the same chords that are through the choruses and things. And so I kind of lean towards it being Lennon, since George Harrison usually played more precise and really thought out his solos and things like that. So that's my thought, but I could be wrong. I don't know. But what are your thoughts on Nowhere Man? Was this one you had heard before?
Yeah, this is one of my favorites actually, and this one, like I said, it's so deceptive. That's what I like about it is it's so cool to hear a song that could be and feels like it's about a guy who's just not lucky in love, but it feels like it's about that. And really, what it is just about a guy that feels lost and alone and marginalized, ignored. He feels invisible off on the sides. And it's not that, oh, nobody loves him. It's just that nobody sees him or that he's not going anywhere. He's not doing anything. And one of the lyrics in there I love is, isn't he a bit like you and me? It is such a, yeah, like we all have those times where we're not on the top of our game or we feel lost.
It's kind of weird. Lennon is singing more in a third person view.
Yeah.
But it's also, the lyrics are kind of first person. It's kind of
autobiographical, right?
Yeah, but isn't he a bit like you and me? So
he's singing about himself from the third person.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, like this person that feels lost and ignored. And yet, does anybody see the real him? Does anybody see him? And that can totally relate to someone who's not lucky in love, but explicitly the song is not a love song. Even so, I just adore this song. I think it's beautiful. And it still sounds like other Beatles love songs, even if it's not a love song. So what are your thoughts about Nowhere Man?
Yeah, I like Nowhere Man. Probably with this song, it fits in perfect with this album. And I've been listening to this album for 35, 36 years now. It's one of the first Beatles albums I got, so it holds a special place to me. But I do hear this song a lot on the radio, more than some other ones. And it's not my favorite on the album, but I love the song. It's once again carries on that process of this whole album with great harmonies, a great bass line. It's got more la 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 la's in it. It's got that simple solo with the chords that I think was Lennon that played it, but who knows for sure. And I think the McCartney harmonies are good throughout, but they're especially good to end the song. So a really strong song. I like the subject matter of it being completely different than anything the Beatles had done up to this point. So once again, is showing the band growing. So it was definitely a big change. So that moves us on to the next song, the first Harrison song on this album, Think for Yourself. Now, this was recorded on November 8th of 1965, and the one thing this song is very well known for, and what I like the very, very most about this song, is that fuzz bass that McCartney plays on this. Without a doubt, the lead instrument, and I think it's amazing on this. And this is a very cynical, kind of anti-society song. I would say it's kind of a little bit about distrust for authority and things like that. I think it's Harrison. You know, he was always kind of seemed like a negative guy in some ways, and just didn't want to be popular necessarily, especially as the years got later and stuff. And this is kind of the beginning of it. But you've got Harrison and Lennon both playing rhythm guitar on this, because there's not really a lead guitar. The lead instrument is that fuzz bass, and I believe it's the Rickenbacker that McCartney's playing on this, and Ringo Starr on drums. And there is a debate between historians, once again, these special historians that know everything, whether they used a pedal or that was a studio distortion done later on. And I think McCartney said it was plugged into a distortion, a fuzz pedal. So, but it's pretty cool. That it's really a cool sound on this, and it just gives it a whole different thing. I assume this is a song you'd never heard before.
This is my first time hearing it, and so that concept of this fuzz pedal, it was really only meant for guitars, right?
For the most part, yeah, they had only used it on guitars. Yeah. I don't think people thought, oh, let's plug a bass into it.
So that's pretty much what the Beatles did, is Paul McCartney plugs in a bass into a fuzz pedal and uses it to distort the sound on the bass, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about these guys at the time, is this was all innovation that people hadn't done. Or, you know, the funny thing is now I give Beatles credit for a lot of things, but a lot of bands have done the things that the Beatles get credit for. Mm-hmm. But the Beatles get credit for it, because of their popularity and bringing it to the masses. So I don't know if it had been done before, but it was certainly one of the first times it was well known.
It's kind of like, having a tuna fish sandwich with potato chips on it instead of on the side. Somebody had to do it first, but, other people have done it since. I don't know why I'm going with that.
That was an amazing analogy. What do you think about the song?
I'm reaching. I'm totally
you're
reaching. I'll tell you, I'm sure a lot of people have done a fuzz pedal with the bass plugged into it since.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because it sounds awesome. I love the song. It's what I put down here in my notes is this is a cool venture into experimenting with different sounds. And the Beatles loved distortion. That much I know. And this sounds a lot like a lot of the 60s songs, but it is unique to itself as well. And that's such a dichotomy to say it out loud like that, but that's exactly what it is. I mean, this is a song that sounds like other songs because other songs came out after to sound like this one. And so that's this. I choose to think that this song's the trendsetter rather than just going along with the flow. Yeah, this is a masterpiece, a work of art. This is one of my favorites, and that's just my first time listening to it. What are your thoughts about? Think for yourself, Justin.
Yeah, this is my favorite Harrison song up until this point. He hadn't had a lot, but I think the thing that stands out big time is he's got an amazing vocal on this. I think it shows a lot of his, we would say he has a lot of confidence now. He's just starting to write songs, starting to feel more comfortable in the studio. At the same time, we have McCartney taking over in the studio, and that'll obviously come to a head. But the number one thing I like on it, like I said before, is the bass. It's got tambourine and maracas in this thing. Good harmonies once again. A very, very good song. No doubt at all. So that brings us to the next song called The Word. Now, this is a Lennon-McCartney song, mainly a Lennon song, recorded on November 10th of 1965. And this is kind of an interesting song because it really is a universal love song, kind of a concept of universal love, kind of going into the couple years before the Summer of Love,
Yeah.
where they'd had a lot of love songs, She Loves You, I Want to Hold Your Hand, that kind of thing. But this one's more universal, is different for them. And I kind of put that off to the marijuana effect as well. It's just, we're all going to love each other, man,
Feeling groovy.
Yeah, but you got Lennon playing rhythm guitar on here. He plays his Casino. McCartney plays the Rickenbacker bass, and he does overdub piano on this. Harrison's on the lead guitar on his Fender Strat, and George Martin is on the harmonium, which is a type of reed organ.
Okay.
And then, of course, you've got Ringo on drums on this thing. There is another controversy on this, whether who played the piano part, whether it was McCartney or Martin, but I think it was McCartney playing the piano and Martin playing the harmonium, but I'm not really sure. But this being one of the first songs that kind of treat love as a philosophy and not a direct statement, in first or third person, I assume this is a song you hadn't heard before as well.
Yeah, this is the first time for me too.
So what do you think of The Word?
This song is one of my favorites on the album. This is beautiful sounding. I fell in love with this song mostly because of the message. And this is the song that makes me call it the Beatles Nick album. This song's just that philosophy of love. But that's just is like, it sounds like beatniks sitting around writing poetry, but it's also got that hippie love. This is a forerunner to the hippie movement, and it's awesome. And I'm sitting here looking backwards at the 60s and what would come later, and this song is just like a pre-show to that, and it's great. I really enjoyed it. So, and this is one, like the last song, Think for Yourself. I didn't even catch most of the lyrics because I was so taken with the instruments and that bass. This song, I listened to the lyrics and the instruments and everything together, and this was a beautiful sound to me, and that's why it jumped to be one of my favorites. What are your thoughts about The Word, Justin?
I like this song. It's got the piano intro. Once again, the bass is very, very strong in this. And like I said, this is kind of the what I think is the Beatles seed for the Summer of Love. Yeah, it's got a sharp guitar in it throughout. Right? I really like those little cutting riffs. They're really cool. But I love the middle eight where, everywhere I go, I hear it said in the good and the bad books that I have read, that part that Lennon sings. And I think that's one of my favorite parts of the song. It's a really good song. And once again, this fits in with the album perfectly. And of course, I only know it in this order. So it's funny because anytime I hear any of these songs on the radio, I know what the next song's going to be as far as the album's concerned. So
yeah, you're anticipating it.
Yeah, really good song.
So what's next?
So that brings us to the last song on side one, which is Michelle. Now, this is primarily a McCartney song, a little lyrical help from Lennon, according to Mark Lewison, but who knows, how some of these go. But this was recorded on November 3rd of 1965. One interesting thing about this song, it won the 1967 Grammy for the Song of the Year.
Really?
So, yeah, did excellent. And a lot of Beatles fans even think this is a very silly throwaway song. I'm not one of those. I really like this song. You've got McCartney on bass on this, an acoustic guitar. I believe he's on his Rickenbacker, and he's playing his Texan. Epiphone Texan, I believe. Lennon is on his Casino, and George Harrison is once again on his Fender Strat. Ringo Starr on drums. Lennon later on, even though McCartney was the main writer, claimed that he wrote the main lyric in this line, but I don't know if that's really it or not. But this song is definitely one of Paul's most elegant melodies going forward. It's a really interesting song because it was written early on. I think like late 50s, McCartney going to parties and things. This was his song written to impress girls.
Because he speaks French.
Yeah, because he speaks French. And that's important, isn't it? And what is that French part, Tyler?
There's like half of this song is in French, it seems.
No, just one line.
Just one line, that's it?
Just one line.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the French part is très bien ensemble, which in French just means really good together.
Yeah. And so they put that in, which is kind of interesting. But have you heard this song before?
I think I had. I'm not that familiar with it. But the Michelle, ma belle, or my belle. I mean, then my belle, that's French as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, my beautiful.
But I don't think it's really about one girl. I think it's in general looking for a girl. I mean, it's McCartney's way of impressing women because, he was the town bull.
Yeah. And I look back thinking, okay, what I want to see is I want to see the Beatles start to write songs like that don't rhyme. So like, Gertrude, my belle.
Well, you got to realize too, this is a very, very early song.
It is.
So I think the music fits in perfect with this, but I think the lyrics are kind of throwaway a little bit and not as grown up as the rest of the album. And funny enough, this is the song that won Grammy Song of the Year.
That's amazing to me.
Yeah.
This isn't even the strongest song on this album. And yet it made that's just amazing that they picked this song to be Song of the Year. Even so, I have to enjoy a song where they use foreign languages in there. What I walked away after hearing this song is I really wanted to listen to some of the music from the Beatles' time in Germany, where they were singing in German. So now I gotta go dig up some of that.
Well, that was just She Loves You and I Want to Hold Your Hand, which they re-recorded in German, which they didn't want to do, but they did it.
Okay. I just think it's fun to hear them sing in a foreign language.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, without a doubt.
Yeah. What are your thoughts about Michelle, ma belle?
I actually really like this song. I think it's a really good, elegant vocal from McCartney. It's got the acoustic opening, and the one thing I really like about this song is I've talked about this on our other Beatles episodes. Me and my wife used to go down to the Cirque du Soleil Beatles Love thing, and they'd always play these music tracks beforehand that the lyrics were stripped out of, the vocals were stripped out of. And this was one of them. And the music in this is great. It's one that I would like to hear all the time that way. There's a few songs they played that way, which you don't notice some of the things that are going on in the songs when the vocals are there. So a really good song. It's got a good little short guitar solo that I like. And I think it's just a pretty song. And it's a good way to end side one. So that's side one of Rubber Soul. And of course, we'll be back next week with side 2 of Rubber Soul and our ratings of the album and songs. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please send them to us at classicvinylpodcast@gmail.com. Tell us what you agree with or don't agree with. And we really appreciate you taking your time to listen to us. So until next week, we'll see you later.
See ya.
Thank you so much for listening to Classic Vinyl Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Classic Vinyl Podcast for updates, and also share us with your music-loving friends.